Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. This particular video, we're going to be looking at weighted average cost of capital with problem number 9. And the problem states that capital structure for Beauvais International is provided below, which I'll open that up here shortly. The company plans to maintain its debt structure in the future if the firm has a 30% after-tax cost of debt from Billy Bob's, 25% after-tax cost of debt from Uncle Jimmy's, and a 14% cost of preferred stock, and a 20% cost of common stock. What is the firm's weighted average cost of capital? Now, in the content that we've talked about, basically in the course room videos, we're dealing with two different sources of capital, those being debt and equity. Realize that in any company, we're going to have multiple different sources of both debt and equity. So this is a problem that really tries to push that envelope a little bit and show you that our weighted average cost of capital isn't as simplistic as just having two different options. We actually will have 4, 10, 15, or if you're in an organization, let's say like General Electric, for example, if we're going to truly calculate the weighted average cost of capital across all sources of capitalization or financing, that's a calculation, quite honestly, that could wrap around the room a couple times, because each individual bond issue has its own individual cost, each different source of equity, each source of debt. I mean, you name it. So, with this in mind, we're kind of expanding on what we've learned thus far and hopefully provide a little more clarity. So to start things off, capital structure, basically have all of our different options listed here. We have Uncle Bob, or Billy Bob's rather, okay? Firm has a 30% after-tax cost of debt from Billy Bob's, 25% from Uncle Jimmy's, so on and so forth. So with this in mind, what we'll do here is kind of walk and talk through this a little bit. Okay, so here's my individual cost from Billy Bob's, okay, 25% from Uncle Jimmy's, 14% is from preferred stock, and 20% from common stock is given in the problem, okay? So what will be given to you in a traditional finance, or in the final exam rather, is basically the section that you see here, okay? Where we have the dollar amounts, or basically the total dollar amounts of capitalization acquired from each one of these individual component pieces. Okay, what you need to do, quite honestly, is total things up and then determine what is your weight of each one of these as part of the whole. So in this case, all we're doing is we're going to take the 1500 over in the numerator over our total and do that same sort of calculation for each one of these, so that you can see exactly what weight of the overall total comes from each one of our component parts of the weighted average cost of capital. Of course, this should all sum up, and this is just a check to make sure that it does, which we are satisfied. So at this point, all I have to do then is figure out, well, what is my total cost based on what we see here? So to take it one step further, I can say that of my total weighted average cost of capital, component piece to this, based on the individual cost and the weight of the overall total, 5.81% comes from Billy Bob's Loan Shark Emporium. 8.06 comes from Uncle Jimmy's, so on and so forth. Okay? All we have to do is sum that up, and we have the weighted average cost of capital for Beauvais International, 23.35%. Now, the question from here is, so what? What does this mean to us? What do we do with it? And as I described in our chapter content, this basically tells us what our baseline discount rate is for any future capital budgeting projects. Okay? This is our baseline discount rate. If a project cannot at least beat this baseline rate of 23.35%, we can say that it's not economic, or not adding economic value to the organization. Okay, so with that in mind, we'll leave this here, and then we'll move on to problem 10 in our next video, having to do with capital budgeting. Thanks so much.